reinvent yourself after the age of 40 in 100 days. I'm 44 years old. I've got 3 kids under the age of 5. But once upon a time, I was 24 years old. And 20 years ago, I was a hot mess. Whereas now, and I had all the time in the world, by the way, whereas now I am fitter, stronger than I've ever been. I've got 3 little kids I'm trying to look after, working from home, running my own business. And I still regularly practice jiu-jitsu, which is fighting, with men half my age, sometimes twice my weight. Today I got a little black eye from an hour of sparring. But I don't feel 44. So how do we do that? How do we defy the odds, defy Father Time, and reinvent ourselves? Firstly, let me give you a quick overview. Identity is key, and it is changeable. It's a process. It's a verb. It's not a noun. We can neurologically rewire ourselves. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So that behavioral change and how that affects our life. We have to be specific with our intentions. So we have to make sure that we're not generic in our goals, although it won't happen. We also have to make sure that we audit our social life, if we have one. And we're going to go through as well how we can execute this 100 days so that we keep doing it afterwards and it becomes second nature. Identity is a verb. It is not a noun. So this was established by William James in 1890, who's the American psychologist. And he said that it's a process, something we're always doing, always constructing. But men, ourselves, over 40, we stop doing that construction deliberately. And it's not because we give up, it's because the space we had to do so gets pushed out, gets destroyed, otherwise known as the third space. And this decline is not a crisis. It's a quiet, persistent wrongness that compounds over time. Energy we had is replaced by low-grade exhaustion, and sleep is not going to fix that. Clarity is replaced by drift. Physical standards are renegotiated downward through 1,000 small deferrals. Cognitive dissonance, which you may have heard of, explains exactly how this happens so silently. When who you believe yourself to be contradicts who you actually are being, the brain resolves attention by not changing behavior, but by lowering the standard until average feels normal. Drift compounds physically, emotionally, relationally, i.e. with the missus, intergenerationally with the kids, and our children, they will be what they see. So we're building templates that they are observing. But I need to cough. Sorry. Previous attempts to fix this fail for 3 reasons. We have the all or nothing effect. We have the knowing doing gap. In other words, the more information we know, the more information paralysis, decision paralysis we have until we don't take any action at all. That's a notification to wake our 2-year-old, but the missus is going to do that. So today's framework is going to cover. The third thing was the wait for it right now phenomenon, where you're like, I'm going to wait for the right moment, but the right moment's not going to come along. So today is going to incorporate psychology, physiology, neuroscience, anthropology, and philosophy. But it's all stuff that works with your biology, not against it. And it works with your life as well, having kids. So, testosterone, the Mac Daddy of hormones for fellas, it declines 1% to 2% from the age of 35 per year. And free testosterone, which is the biologically available form, at about 1.3% annually from 40 to 70. So over a decade, that's 13% reduction. And the hormone that's linked to motivation, drive, cognitive sharpness, libido, emotional resilience. And what it feels like is there's a version of you that used to make decisions and stick to them, but now that's gone quiet. And the gap between intending and doing widens. Everything requires more effort than it used to. This concept is also called the andropause. So like the menopause for women, which is a drastic thing that happens in a very short space of time. So we notice it and it gets talked about a lot, but the andropause is incremental, really small, and we don't notice it. It's like the frog gets dropped into the water and then the water slowly gets heated until the frog boils. The antidote is not more medication though. It's resistance training, it's sleep, it's stress reduction, and all of these are evidence-based interventions for maintaining testosterone. Fix the biology, and that's not vanity, okay? That is the biological prerequisite for every other change. I mean, you cannot rebuild your emotional state or your presence as a dad on a hormonal baseline that is working against you. Fix the biology first, everything else will follow. It builds upon that. Now, for most of the 20th century, we used to think that the brain was a fixed thing after childhood. But we now know that's wrong. We now know that identity change at neurological level is not a moment of transformation. It's gradual. It's a gradual rewiring of which pathways we fire most readily, most often, which behaviors feel more automatic, and which version of yourself your brain defaults to. The capacity to rewire does not expire at 40. It changes in character. It requires more deliberate input, but it is entirely there. Now, the spotlight effect is what keeps men from starting. We dramatically overestimate how much others are watching. Nobody is watching you, and they're not expecting you to fail. They're too busy thinking about themselves, so begin anyway. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, those chaps, they used to ask a core question. How do you act well when you don't feel like it? And the answer is this: deliberate choice. Acting from reason, not impulse. Ego depletion demonstrates that willpower and self-control draw on a limited cognitive resource that diminishes with every decision made throughout the day. So by the evening time, when you've got young kids, full day of working, your emotion regulation is challenged, and you arrive at that moment of choice. Train or don't train. Put the phone up, or pick the phone up or put the phone down. And with almost nothing left, motivation then requires willpower. But willpower is the most depleted resource at the most critical moments. Standards replace motivation. A decision made in advance on a calm day about what this version of you does, regardless of how he feels, eliminates the decision entirely at that point of depletion. 100 average days is the target. Not perfect days, not best days, average days. Showing up anyway, performing the standard anyway. By day 100, the accumulation of evidence is overwhelming. The brain can no longer sustain the story that you are someone who doesn't do these things. And implementation intentions says that you will have follow through if it's specific. So if you say, I will train more, it's too general. But if you say, when my alarm goes off, I will put on my training clothes before I look at my phone. That becomes your protocol and your default. You just do that anyway. Embodied identity. This is a theory of habitus, which I don't know if you've heard of that before. Pierre Bourdieu, I can never say his name. But this is that identity is held not just in the mind, it's held in the body, the posture. If you know the body keeps a score, it's a similar concept to that. So the physical signals to your nervous system, thousands of times per day that you give it, determines how you then behave. When you change how your body moves, how it performs, you change how your brain interprets who you are. In other words, a man who trains seriously is not just fitter. He is sending continuous signals to a nervous system of what his identity is, to his own brain. I am someone who does hard things, who shows up, who follows through. And those signals accumulate over time. They compound. And at some point, they become the dominant narrative. The body and mind are one system. Physical change is identity change. Keep drifting over to this side. Right. Okay, so what we need to do, biological reset, is 3 resistance trainings per week. Not 6, not 7. After 40, the recovery window extends, and muscle protein synthesis response is slightly blunted. So research says we need 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily. But in other words, what that means, protein synthesis, is our body's ability to use protein when we eat it and to build muscle. So in other words, we need more rest. And that's why when we train, we do it intensely, short bursts, and then we treat our recovery as important as we treat our training. As well as resistance training 3 times a week, do 2 zone 2 sessions per week. That's a walking pace, 45 minutes to 60 minutes. That's all, walking, not sprinting, not running. A zone 2 research shows profound benefits for mitochondrial function, metabolic health, and testosterone maintenance. So better for stress. Wait, pause that for 1 second. Mitochondrial DNA. We don't realize it, but you got kids already. I imagine you're watching this. But if you want more kids, the health of you affects the health of your sperm. Right? It's what you pass on to the generations. So, and you don't have to be training for years and years. Literally just a few weeks, few months will make a big difference to the quality of your sperm. Right, let's move on from the topic of sperm, shall we? So, walking, though, in terms of stress management, is better than intense daily cardio. Right? Because intense daily cardio elevates cortisol, and that suppresses testosterone. Sleep is non-negotiable, obviously, but it's not easy for all of us, especially when our kids are younger. What we can do, though, is work with a schedule that works with our life. So you maybe only get 5 hours per night. Maybe it's broken. Could you sneak in a 20-minute nap in your car? Something worth considering. And sometimes you close your eyes, you think, I'm not going to fall asleep, but simply resting your nervous system, not always feel like you have to be doing something. When you're walking, can you not listen to a podcast about productivity? Can you simply breathe, look at the nature, notice what's around you? Nutrition. So we have, just a quick recap of those first 3. 3 resistance training sessions a week, 2 zone 2 cardio sessions per week. That's 2 hours of walking, essentially. Decent sleep when you can get it. Now, nutrition is the last thing on this list for the biological reset. High protein, minimally processed and consistent. I mean, it's better to eat adequately but consistently for 100 days than it is to eat incredibly for a few weeks, like we do the first few weeks of January. This is not a performance framework. We're not looking to set world records or PBs. This is a biological reset. You're resetting your hormonal and neurological conditions under which your identity change becomes possible. Implementation intentions. So what this means, very simply put, is when X happens, I will do Y. When my alarm goes off at 6 a.m., I will put on my training clothes before I check my phone. When I finish work, I will change into my training clothes before doing anything else. When I feel the urge to react emotionally, I will take 10 seconds or 3 breaths before responding. This is the difference between an intention and a system. Intentions are fragile, systems are not. So, next slide. This is the controversial one. If you got mates, good on you. Right? Because as you get older, you know less and less people. You spend more time with the wife, the kids, and that happens. But this is not really just mates. This is just people in our life. This could be in-laws, neighbors. Map out every person you interact with on a regular basis. Write their name down and then score them. I know. It's cold-hearted. +1 if they push you forward. If they challenge you, they hold you to a higher standard and their presence makes you better. -1 if they pull you back. If they normalize mediocrity, if they undermine your standards, if they make the old version of you feel more comfortable than the new one. And a 0 if they're neutral. They're present, but they're not particularly moving you in either direction. This is not a moral judgment. It is an honest assessment of the direction in which your life is going based on the people around you. And this doesn't have to be dramatic, by the way. You know, you're not making speeches or burning bridges. You become gradually less available to -1 people. And you're more deliberate about investing time in +1 people. And the collaboration shifts over months. Real resilience is not the ability to stay positive or to feel okay when things are not okay. That's suppression. Real resilience is the capacity to process without allowing it to change your trajectory. So Viktor Frankl, you're probably familiar with, the survivor of Auschwitz. He's the chap that said, what's that DMX quote? To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. But that's his most famous quote, what he's known for, if you've heard that before. But what he also said is, there is a gap between stimulus and response. There's a space. And in that space is the power to choose your response. In your response lies your growth and your freedom. You have a concept called learned helplessness. Right? This means repeated failed attempts at transformation produce unconscious belief that change is not available, specifically to you. The reverse of that is learned optimism. The accumulation of small experiences of agency, small wins that rebuild the evidence base for the belief that effort matters. Now, there's also a concept called the U-curve of happiness. Life satisfaction declines through the 30s and 40s. So this means that basically a midlife crisis, okay? But this is completely within our control. And it's actually been shown that if we take control of that midlife stage and we act in a way that's defiant to what popular culture tells us to be, which is fat, lazy, and stupid, Homer Simpson, Daddy Pig, Peter Griffin, we can determine the second half of our life and the quality of the second half of our life. Dare I say the final decade. Will we be the fittest, happiest fella in the nursing home? We won't even need a nursing home at that stage. Okay, 100 days. The neurological rewiring threshold shown in this diagram, if you're watching, below it is the old identity. That has the gravitational pull. And that 100 days is that orange dot where the trajectory breaks through and compounds upwards. 100 days average days. Not perfect days, not your best days. The days when motivation has evaporated and the old patterns are whispering to you. 100 of those days, showing up anyway, performing to the standards anyway, permanently breaks the old identity. And by day 100, the accumulated evidence is overwhelming. The brain can no longer sustain the story that you are someone who doesn't do these things. And we call this the default loop. So high motivation has the initial action, right? But if we can get out of that motivational loop, right, which we all fall into sometimes, I'm going to start this thing and then we have no systems, so it burns out quickly. We will say to ourselves, okay, 100 days. That's, it's called the Zeigarnik effect. So essentially you've opened a loop. It's a bit like when you go to a restaurant, you make an order. This is the Zeigarnik effect. And you say, this is what I want. And they go away and you think, oh God, actually, I want to change my order or add this, take this away. Notice when the waiter comes back to you, they can recall your order in great detail without even having to write it down. But once they put that order through the till, give it to the chef or the kitchen, it's gone out of their head because they've closed that loop. So the Zeigarnik effect means that every previous incomplete loop has reinforced the narrative that change is not available. So every time you failed in the past, it reinforced that I'm just a failure at this. I'm not a fit person. It's not my thing to get fit. But when day 100 closes this loop, you'll realize I can do this for over 3 months. Right? It's not a long time, but 3 months is 100 days is the container, right? And these are the mechanisms. Between the ages of 40 and 65, the core question is not what do I want, but what am I building that will outlast me? And the ripple effect says that positive change in one person produces measurable positive change in the people closest to them, which spreads further outward. Transformation is not contained, it spreads. So your children are watching you right now. They're not the perform version of you, the real version. The one who trains or doesn't train, who shows up with presence or with the phone in hand, who handles pressure with composure or reactivity. What they are watching, they are absorbing, not as lessons, as templates. Research on intergenerational transmission of behavior is unambiguous. The patterns a child observes in their father are among the most powerful predictors of the patterns they will adopt in their own adult lives. You are not doing this for yourself alone. You are doing it for the men and women your children will become. Children are watching everything. You are the template now. You're not the perfect one, but you're the real one. And your father's generation didn't have the language for emotional availability, for presence, for the difference between providing and showing up, but you do. That knowledge is a blessing, but also a curse. It's a burden. It raises the standard, but it is also the beginning of something. The patterns a child observes in their father are among the most powerful predictors of the patterns they will adopt. This is not motivational language. It's research. You are living in the first generation of fathers doing this with the full awareness of what's at stake. You don't need to be the perfect dad. You need to be a real dad. Someone who shows up consistently, who demonstrates through his own life that a man can take care of himself without it being selfish. You are the prototype for tomorrow. You're not a finished article, but you're a work in progress. Start today. This is 3 practical things you can do this week to get going. So the first is finish the Apex Dad scorecard. It's below, it's in the description. It takes 2 minutes to do. It will give you a score, a snapshot of your life across mind, body, business, relationships, family. And you'll see where in your life there's leaks. Are you experiencing cognitive dissonance? We don't know this unless we are honest with ourselves first. And the third and final thing is write 1 sentence and run the social audit tonight. So complete this sentence. The man I am becoming by the end of this year is someone who, then insert your intention. It doesn't need to be perfect. Writing it activates that prefrontal cortex. And then on the same page, write down everyone you interact with regularly and score each one. +1, -1, or 0. And then look at what that list is telling you. So scorecard tonight, implementation intention tomorrow morning, and 1 sentence and your social audit before you sleep. That's week 1. That's it. That's the end. Thank you for watching. If you're watching, thank you for listening. If you're listening, see you on the next one.